everyone, it's MK. Welcome back to MK Quilts for my weekly live feed update. So the last time I saw you, I was fixing to be on out of here to my daughter's wedding, wasn't I? So that event happened this last weekend out in Las Vegas, and it just absolutely turned out so fantastic. I posted a couple of pictures. More pictures will be on the way. But my daughter she looked fantastic. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. Everybody had a great time. And so Paul and I, our hearts were so full. But I'm back in town, and boy, I tell you what, I have got some quilting and stuff to do between now and the end of the year. So I am just going to be busy beyond busy. But I thought what I would do today is, I have a couple of things on the list, but then I thought that I would go back and maybe share a little bit of my story with you guys. And I have probably done some of this over the past in, different live feeds, but I thought it would be kind of cool maybe to tell a little bit of my story again, because there's several new people on the board and there's been some chatter about me and my classes, and I just thought it might be kind of fun to go back and talk about that. So let's see. The first thing on my list was the catch up about the wedding. It was really, really great. I had on my live feed last week, I held up the quilt label that I was doing for Chelsea and Bob's quilt. Well, it had a typo on it, so I had to come back to the studio like 5 a.m. the morning that we flew to Vegas and redo the label and stitch it on. Oh my gosh, it was a big ordeal. But the quilt got done. They absolutely loved it. Here's the other thing. I just can't even believe that this happened. I have no pictures. I was so in a rush to get that quilt done. I have no pictures of it quilted. We did get some pictures at the wedding, but I wasn't taking the pictures, and I have asked people to please send me pictures of this beautiful quilt that I made for Chelsea, because I have nothing. So I do have the layout. When I gather up some pictures, I will share that with you. But it turned out really, really great in the end, even though the label was messed up to begin with. The other funny thing that happened with regard to the wedding and quilting is that the hotel we were staying at, our concierge was a quilter. He was a guy, but he was a quilter, and he was even interested in buying a quilting machine. So we talked to him a little bit about that. It's kind of odd how those things happen, right? So the other thing, of course, that was going on while I was away was the Houston International Quilt Festival. So if any of y'all went to that, I hope you had a great time. I enjoyed seeing, videos and the Handy Quilter booth and pictures and all of you guys chattering about that. So we'll see. Maybe next year. Maybe next year is the year for MK to finally get there. All right, so let me go back now and just talk a little bit to you about the MK story. How is it that I'm coming to you with all this simulation stuff and these live feeds and sharing my layouts with you, and how have I gotten to where I'm at? And the reason why I kind of thought about this week was there was a post that registration for Handy Quilter Academy just opened up the beginning of November. And I have chattered about this before, but I am going to recommend to anybody watching this, if there is any way possible for you to go to Academy out in Salt Lake City next summer in June, please try to make that happen. Because for me, that is pretty much where my story began with all of this simulation stuff. So let me just take you back in time just a little bit. So back in the summer of 2015, Handy Quilter was fixing to put out a new update of ProStitcher, and they had been chattering about it, and we were told that it was going to be out. We were going to be able to get our hands on it right before Academy in 2015. Well, then, I don't know, something happened, and they had to delay it. And I was like, oh, I was so excited to see this update. Well, as it turns out, they released the new version of ProStitcher, I think it was like the day before I got on the plane to go to Academy in the summer of 2015. So that day I downloaded it, and that, if you weren't an owner at that time, or maybe you don't remember, that update was when we got the new version of ProStitcher. We got things like SKU 2. SKU 2 was huge that summer. We had never had that awesome functionality with SKU. So anyway, I downloaded the update, including simulation, onto my laptop, got on a plane, and went to Salt Lake City. Now, simulation was so new at that time that nobody, I mean, of course, like Vicki Hoth and, you know, all those ladies, they had seen it, but they were not teaching with it at Academy that summer. So I had it on my laptop, and like nobody else in the room had even like seen it. So I was like, this simulation was kind of intriguing to me, but I really didn't understand what the purpose of it was. Like I didn't get it. Like, what was it for? It was neat. Yay, I could have it on my laptop, but I really didn't get it. Well, that summer when I went to Academy, I kind of went as a self-professed, I don't know, maybe a little bit more of an intermediate to advanced quilter. I had been an owner a long time at that point, and I just, you know, I kind of wanted to take some art and stitch classes that summer. So I took a whole cloth art and stitch class, and it was during that art and stitch class that I had the aha moment with simulation. So we were doing these cool things, laying out designs and little blocks in art and stitch, which I was not very familiar with. Still, I'm no art and stitch, you know, expert, but we were doing some layout and things with art and stitch, and all of a sudden it kind of clicked in my head that I basically think I could do a lot of what she's doing just by using my simulation product. Okay, that was like the hugest light bulb ever, because I went home after Academy that summer, so that was June. By October, I was teaching online classes over WebEx. I had people from all over the country, actually ended up being all over the world, taking my online classes because they were seeing me do something with simulation that there was nobody else really doing that at that time. So fast forward a little bit more. I am going like mad woman with this simulation. I'm doing all kinds of layouts. I went on vacation that fall, and I was just doing layout after layout after layout, and posting and showing people what I was doing. Well, pretty sure that Handy Quilter was watching at that time, because it was not too long after that they kind of picked up on what I was doing. And they invited me out to Salt Lake City to do taping. They were still doing the Quilt at the Long Arm Quilting Show at that time, right? There's episodes, like tons of episodes that they did. I think it was on for maybe 6 years, 7, something like that. And they asked me if I would come out and tape episodes using what I had been doing with simulation. I was like, wow, sure, that would be fun. So I got to meet Jody Davis. I got to meet some other amazing quilters while I was there. That was in like the winter of 2016. And you guys, ever since that point, this is where I have come to with simulation. It just became a product of kind of an aha moment, and then taking that aha moment and just kind of working it into how I was quilting in my studio. And one of the things for me that why I love simulation so much is because I pretty much don't do much free motion quilting. Just flat out, it's not my specialty. It's not something I feel comfortable with. But the computer part of it kind of clicks in my brain. Okay, so with simulation, I love it because I can kind of plan things out. I can work with things before I'm actually at the machine. And I love that because, you know, I mentioned that it was the art and stitch class that was kind of the catalyst for me. One of the things that I focus on with my training here at MK Quilts and surrounding ProStitcher and simulation is really helping you know and love your ProStitcher. Like, the ProStitcher is basically what you buy. Art and Stitch kind of an add-on, probably for most people. So although Art and Stitch is fantastic, phenomenal, I can't even begin, I don't even know what I don't know about Art and Stitch. But one of the things is, I want you to come home with your ProStitcher and be able to use that in real world, like everyday kind of quilting scenarios. So that is why in my training, I have focused in on ProStitcher and have just taken simulation as a tool, not only to teach you, but to help me. This is how I do it. I use simulation to plan out my quilting. I'm going to show you a quilt on Mcfinity when we end that, you know, I planned out the whole layout. I'm just down to the final border. Everything is all set up by the time I get to the machine. All I have to do is take those items that I have built using simulation and stitch them out at the quilt. It's just like, I don't know. I don't even know how I quilted before I had this. So thank you again, Handy Quilter, for giving us simulation, and so that it can just help us as a tool to learn with and to help our quilting go quicker. When I started with simulation, I kind of fast forwarded to, I just want to hold up, this is a little bit of show and tell today. So when I figured out simulation, I started immediately doing like my whole cloth layouts. So this is just a whole cloth layout that I did using my simulation, and it's got some cool kind of organza on the top. I was experimenting with quilting on things that were non-traditional, so, you know, not just plain cotton. But I took this idea, and I knew that most people weren't going to start right out with doing whole cloth. So I knew that I had to back that down. And that's why I have built my classes the way that I have, is I start with pantos. Everybody can take their ProStitcher and learn how to do pantos and be successful with that. Then I go into something a little bit more than pantos. So doing a panto on the inside of a quilt, but adding on some easy border treatments. We can all take our quilting to the next step with border treatment. Then there's even fancier border treatments, all those fancy L-shaped connected borders. Those are a little bit more tricky, and that's what I cover next in my progression of classes. Finally, we get to classes like whole cloth, where you're just planning out a whole stitch out just using your simulation product. So that's my story, how I got from, you know, Academy in the summer of 2015 to today. Just, I have all of you, over 1,050 now, maybe 1,060 or 75 people following me because you're intrigued about this thing that I do with simulation, okay? And I know there's a lot of new followers, so it's kind of why I wanted to go backwards today and just kind of fill you in on what is this all about. So just in the board before I hopped on, I posted the link to my very first YouTube video that I did, and I called all of those videos Sim Series. Okay, so simulation series. We started at number 1. I don't know what we're up to by now, but you know, all of those original ones that I did, those were done in ProStitcher Standard. Now I've updated, right, and I'm doing videos when I have time in ProStitcher Premium. So I want you to go back and look at those, because I've seen some chatter on the board about what is the purpose of the simulation and how do you use it, MK, and you know, I don't understand. So go back and watch some of those YouTube videos, and then consider taking some of my for rent, for pay classes, where I take you through all of those things that I just talked about. And again, the whole goal of it is to make you know your system better, understand it better, use simulation as a tool, but also so that it can help you plan out what you're quilting and make that whole process go quicker once you get to the machine. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So let's go ahead and show you. Let me move this stuff out of the way. Let me show you what's on the frames today. Over here on McFusion is another one of those t-shirt quilts. Remember, I talked about them last week. A customer of mine made 5 of them. That's the 4th one. I got 1 more to go for her. And then over here on the McFinity is that quilt that I mentioned where I did the whole layout ahead of time in simulation. I'm just getting down here to the bottom now. I'm working on piano key border. Again, all of that was completely planned out and set up in simulation. All I had to do was do some marking and skew it into place and ready to go. And then over here on the wall is, whoops, I don't want it to be crooked for you. That blue quilt there, that was a whole cloth quilt that I did in preparation for going out to Handy Quilter when they invited me out to do the episodes with Quilt It on QNN TV. They said, you know, Melissa, bring some samples of what you're doing and whatnot. And so I'm like, ooh, I better get busy and stitch out some of the things that I had been doing with simulation. So that quilt I took out to Handy Quilter. That was winter of 2016. And I think that's about it. It seemed like there was something else I wanted to tell you, but it's not on the list and I can't remember. Oh, I know what it was. There is still on Handy Quilter's website. So if you go to handyquilter.com/Melissa, I just went and double checked it before I hopped on. When I was out there in the winter of 2016, I did an interview with them, and they recorded me, and we were talking about ProStitcher and simulation, and I had some of my work out there and everything. So if you want to get a little bit more background on my story, hop over to handyquilter.com/Melissa and see my interview that I did with them. Okay, you guys, like I say, I have got to get back to work. I have so much quilting to do between now and the end of the year. It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, I just remembered too, along with the interview, you can still see my episodes that I taped for QNN TV. So if you go to QNNTV.com, my episodes are the 704 series, okay? So 704 A, B, and C. And it's just a little bit of a taste of what I do with simulation, okay? And I thank Handy Quilter for that opportunity. It was really fun. All right, you guys, I'm going to get back to the machines, and until next week, from my studio to yours, happy quilting. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.